Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Austin, and it is once again a pleasure to be here to bring quality programs to all of you. I am excited again to have another amazing speaker, author, professional. Oh my goodness, he is amazing. I'm going to tell you. So stay tuned, listen to this podcast because it's definitely going to be something that you want to listen to over time. And also, this is the platform to be on in 2018. So if you're a working professional and you want to share what you do for a living, the BMWC is a platform you definitely want to be on in the coming year in 2019 if you missed it in 2018. Just in case you didn't know, the purpose of the BMWC is to share our industry information and encourage you, the working professional, to also look at the different lines of industries that is changing over the next few years. So take a moment to look at all the pages and look at all the bios, listen to all the podcasts from all these amazing participants that are here on this platform this season. There is so much information out there. There is no excuse not to be able to move forward with your goals. Just pick an industry and go for it. I also want to take a moment to thank our corporate partners and sponsors for supporting this effort, and they are Cat Serrano, LLC, Cheryl Wood Empowers, Concern and Learning, Evangelism Radio, Genesis Preferred Solutions, J Coach International, Nels Tax Help, My Financial Home, Power, STCI, and the student teacher, along with our other business affiliate sponsors, participants, and other corporate sponsors that is helping to make this season a success. So today we have a really dynamic motivational speaker, author, all the way out in Surrey, England, y'all. He's in England doing his thing all on Facebook, giving out his little nuggets of knowledge that he puts out there on Facebook. And I just think he's phenomenal. And we're going to bring on the platform today Renaldo Lawrence. Renaldo is a motivational speaker and currently employed at Glen School in Epsom, Surrey, England, where he develops and deploys interactive learning resources for staff, faculty, parents, and students. As an information and communication technology teacher, he consults and trains across the United States and Europe on how to use and create digital media, web design, e-learning applications in the classroom. And as an author of his book entitled I Am More Than What You See, he just uses that book to elevate more information and education to everyone across the country. He is a graduate from Appalachian State University, and after his graduation, he was drafted by the San Diego Clippers. He has played in so many countries, including South America, Finland, Argentina, and a whole host of other countries. And he has also received the record for being the fourth leading scorer in the history of British basketball, which 73 of those points in one of the games that it landed him a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. So it's just so much dynamics to Renaldo here on this platform. So I want to bring him here. Welcome, Renaldo, to the platform.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here with you, and I really appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, so let's start from the beginning of, you weren't always in England. So let's talk about exactly, like where you from and how did you even get into basketball?
I grew up in St. Matthews, South Carolina, and I was an extremely awkward young man. And I was fortunate enough to, like most of us do, have people around us to see our potential before we see the potential in ourselves. And I had a man by the name of Coach Dason who encouraged me quite a bit when he saw that I could play a little bit of basketball. And it then went on, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Appalachian State University. And from there, I was drafted. I was then fortunate enough to just be in the office one day with a gentleman, Charles Payton. And Charles got a call from England. And Charles looked over at me and said, "Renaldo, do you want to go to London?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not doing anything else, so let's do it." And that has been about 33 years now since I've been here. So it's all worked out really well.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, I'm going to start right off immediately with the devil's advocate part of this interview. A lot of the industries that we teach our kids that they should be into is entertainment, football, sports, and things of that nature. In the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about not going into these sports, not because it's a bad thing, but because we trying to get out of the stigma of saying that this is all that, African American young men can get into is sports and entertainment. Okay. So let's talk about, some of the great things about being in sports, and maybe talk about some of the other things that people don't know about being in the sports field.
Sure. Well, I think what sports have done for me, it has given me the ability to understand how other people feel, given me the ability to uh, understand what it means to be on a team. I think what it's also done is allowed me to hone my skills in order to be as good at something as I possibly can. But I look at my basketball skills, and I didn't look at it like this when I was playing, but I look at my skills that I had and the possibilities that were open up to me as basketball was the opening field. Basketball was the thing that allowed me to understand that I had so much more to give in life and so much more to give to people. And I like to think that basketball opened the door for what I'm doing now. So playing basketball, I had the opportunity to play in front of thousands and hundreds and thousands of people, and all that was great. But I think that what I'm doing now, my mission is much bigger than the basketball. But I think in terms of kids, I think you have to try to find your gift. And if your gift leads you down the basketball path, I think that's fine. But what you need to understand is that that career will come to an end pretty soon. And
Yeah.
yeah, and what you need to understand is, Dr. J says something that just really interests me when I was in college. Dr. J said, Julius Irvin, he said, when I was almost to the end of my career, I had started planning what I was going to do after. So I didn't have to step down. I just merely stepped across. And that's what I tried to do with my career. I just stepped across. So there wasn't a big dip, because I hear a lot of people that I used to play with now, they live in the glory days, and I very seldom talk basketball now. My life is so much bigger than the basketball that I played. I think what actually needs to happen is that we need to put more of us in front of our kids so our kids can actually see that you don't have to just particularly play sports. You don't have to particularly, be able to shoot, run. There is so much more. Life is so much more interesting, if you are able to be a well-rounded individual. And I think it's extremely important that we have to make sure that our kids are getting a good education because the education is the foundation of everything. And I think, when you are playing
Hmm.
ball, the
Hmm.
most interesting thing about playing ball is that you never think it's going to end. You think you're going to be able to play forever. You think you're a god. And then all of a sudden, that day closely arrives, and then that's it. And then what are you going to do?
Right, right.
What are you
And
going to do?
that kind of leads to the next thing. So, what was the turning point in your career as far as basketball, since you're talking about that, that led you to going into the educational field? Because you made a really good transition. I hear a lot of times that, basketball players are looking for the next business opportunity, but you chose education. So, what was that turning point for you that led you in that direction?
I was when I was at college at university. I actually did my degree in physical education. In one of the events that we had was we had to look at some handicapped kids, and these kids were severely handicapped. And so one day we had them, and we were looking after them in the pool. And I just looked at these kids, and I was like, "Wow! If these kids can be this happy." And I've got all my facilities there and I can't be happy, then there's something wrong. There's just something wrong. So I then decided that, maybe I needed to make sure that my life was going on a trajectory that I wanted it to go on. So what I then started doing was I started just studying various things. And one of the things I always did when I was in the various countries is I always went into schools because my degree was in education. So I just wanted to see how other schools were functioning around the world. Now, I hated school. I hated school.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that has helped me now
Mm-hmm.
is that hatred of school because now I'm able to
Oh.
understand how kids are, who don't want to be there. I'm able to understand the middle band kids. I'm able to understand the talented, kids. So I'm able to create content now based around that whole spectrum. I happened to be one day when I was teaching PE, I was in a room and there was a guy in there, Glenn Cole. And Glenn had two applications open. He had a Microsoft Word document open, and he had a photo draw open application open, which is an image application. And he just dragged that image into Word, and it just completely blew my mind. And this is how you know God is for you. So literally, that next week, the young lady who was the head of IT said to me that she was actually pregnant. No one knew, and that she was going to be off for a while. So she said to me that if you want the job, you need to prepare. So I literally, no joke, spent a whole year in the library. But what I did was I went to all the different departments in the library, in the school, and I asked them if they could have an internet site or intranet site, what would they have on it? So fortunately enough, they all gave me the materials. So I now had a purpose. So I could use those materials to teach myself how to create content. And then when the job came up, I got it. And that's where we started. And that has led now to, I am one of the authors at lynda.com, who was just purchased by Microsoft for $26.9 billion.
Wow.
I go to the States every summer and I record courses. And so educators can see those courses online. And so it's just been an amazing adventure. It's just been an amazing adventure.
Wow, that sounds fabulous. I mean, it's interesting how you just saw one little thing, you know, as an image being dragged over into Word, and you just kind of saw the big picture. You saw the future. And that's sort of what it was like for me when I was introduced to technology years ago. I was sitting in front of this computer, not even seeing anything, no images or anything. It's just text on a monochrome screen. Okay. And to me, that was the most fabulous thing I've ever seen in my life. And I just wanted to know more about how is it doing what it's doing. And it's those aha moments that I like to hear and bring out in these podcasts, because a lot of times we see these opportunities and we just say, oh, okay, that's amazing, but we don't really investigate. But you actually took it to a whole new level. You started asking questions. You went to the library, and that is how we end up finding what we need to do with our purpose in our life and things like that. And so you kind of took that and brought it into the school system. So how did you land the teacher? So once you said you landed the teacher role, correct? So, so you got into the teacher role, and the first year, how was that for you? Was it hard? Was it difficult? How was the students? How did they take, knowing who you were, or did they not know who you were when you stepped in?
Well, being in London, the amazing thing is the way I talk is very different. It's just like if someone from England came to the States, it's very different. So as soon as you walk in a room, people automatically listen. So now what comes after your mouth after that, then that determines whether you keep them listening or not. But I was very fortunate that my first school was an all-girls school. I taught PE, and then I did the IT thing. And with the IT thing, I think people are a reflection of your enthusiasm. And I was extremely enthusiastic about what I do, and I love what I do. If they wouldn't pay me, I would still do it. So what I then did was I was able to get all the teachers on board. So I stayed at this particular school with the IT role for about 5 years. And then I moved closer to where I am now. And the wonderful thing about moving closer to where I am now is I just had my son. And at the school was really in a bad way that I came to. It was called St. John the Baptist School. In terms of IT, it was really poor. So I had an opportunity we changed the school around. I had one other guy working with me, and we went from something like, I think it was 30% A to C. Within 2 years, we were something like 90% A to C. And we kept that up for the 12 years that I stayed there. And the reason we did was we changed the whole curriculum. So we brought in things like all the Adobe products. We brought in things that were fun to the kids. We brought in things that they could create video. We brought in things that they could create all different type of content, like websites and everything. So, the kids had never done this before. So it was very interesting. And I just believe that it's extremely important to us that when we have these kids in front of us, that we're teaching them skills that will help them make some money, that will help them live a prosperous life. And I think the worst thing that schools do now is we always talk about, preparing for a job. Well, why not create your own job? And that's my message to my students. Try to look for ways that you can create your own company and be an employer instead of just being an employee. So that's my sort of role of what I try to do now.
Yeah, we actually over here, I guess in the States now, are really booming with the create your own job. And you're right, a lot of schools do not promote that. But I would say in the last 2 years, some of the schools here in Maryland that I know are really starting to focus on entrepreneurship very, very early. This is something that has not really been addressed for many, many years as well. And so just having that person or that one, entity that's going to say, we're going to now start focusing on entrepreneurship or how you can take your talent and create it. But at the same time, we also need to help people develop it. And so I think we need more of that. And I really applaud the fact that you're actually teaching people how to do web development and you're teaching them the technology because that is our future. That is what's happening now is a lot of technology. And so you actually showed me a nice, cool little piece of technology on how you could do like digital business cards, which I thought was very, very nice. I even gave you my stuff and I said, oh, this is kind of cool. Uh, but do they leverage that in England? And also, why did you move to England? I know you traveled all over the world, but why England?
I when I got here, I think the old adage is, what happened was I opened my mouth to a woman, and before I knew it, it was 10 years, and I had 2 kids and 2 cars and a mortgage and a house. And so
Okay.
that's what happened.
No more
and
said on that.
no more. And then what I've always said to myself was that, and I know everybody's situations is different. So I can't say what one person should do, what another person should not do. But I've always promised myself that if I had kids, I will stay in my kids' lives, regardless of what happened. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay in my kids' lives. And so I just, they were born here, so I stayed here. And, you can either complain or you can make your life what you want it to be. And I just knew that I wanted my life to be extraordinary. And so I decided to make it extraordinary. And my kids and my family here are part of that extraordinary experience. And I go back to the States every summer, and I re-Americanize myself, and then I come back for more. So it's cool.
Okay. Well, let's talk about this book, I Am More Than What You See. How did you come up with the concept of this book and what is it about?
Okay. 15 years ago, my mom got mad at me one day and said to me, I'm tired of telling you to write a book. I'm tired of it. You got all these experiences. Why don't you write a book? And I just let it go. You know how you do when your parents talking to you. Just let it go. And about 10 months ago, I got up one Sunday morning, and usually on the weekends, I get up about 6:30. And I actually go for a walk, and I walk about 4 or 5 miles. And usually I walk 4 or 5 miles because when I'm doing my lynda.com courses, I am very fortunate that when I walk, things flood to me. So this particular day I got up, and I don't know, for some reason, this book was on my mind. And I'm not telling you a word of lie. After I finished that, I think it was 4 miles that day, I had 5 chapters in my head. The only thing I didn't have was I didn't have the titles for the chapters. But I came back home and I just typed them up, and things just developed over time. It just developed. And what I did was, once I got the titles, then I just knew, that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to complete this book. And an interesting thing happened on the way to completing this book. I would tell my daughter that I was going to do it. And about a month went by, and she said, well, where's this book now? So you're always talking about your book. So what are you doing? And so I was like, wow, okay. So I said, from then on, I didn't even mention the book. I just did it. And then I had it published. The book is organized into 13 chapters. The book is there was 13 stories about my life. And in the stories, we have the book set up where you have a story. You then have what I learned from the story, and then you have reflective questioning. And those questions allow you to look at your life and look at the situation that I was in, and then try to see whether you're in that, have been in that same situation, or if you're in that situation, how can you make that prosperous for you? And not just prosperous in terms of finances, but just prosperous in terms of life. And the book is a quite interesting book, and the feedback that we've gotten has just been absolutely amazing. But I wrote the book for two reasons. Number one, legacy, because I wanted my kids and my kids' kids and my kids' 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 kids, grandchildren to understand that they had somebody in their life that thought enough of their family, thought enough of themselves to write a book. The other reason I wanted to do it was because where I come from in St. Matthews, I knew no authors. And looking like I do, I thought it was important that those kids understand that regardless of what you want to do, you can do it. All you have to do is just make up your mind and do it. And what's very interesting is on Thursday, I had a video conference session with about 25 kids from a school there who've adopted my book and using it for Black History Month. And during our conversations, they had what they called Dress Up Thursday. So all of them were in bow ties and ties and dresses, and they look fabulous. And so they asked me about 15 questions, and we talked about writing the book. And I think, just by having somebody that looks like them in front of them, who's done what I'm doing now, it gives them an opportunity to understand that anything is possible. And to come from the small town that I come from, anything is possible. And it's funny because Alphron Jeffries just won the Super Bowl championship, and me and his dad are very good friends. And he and my brother are very good friends, matter of fact, best friends. And so now those kids have a writer, and they have a football player, and they have other people in the neighborhood that they can actually look up to. Because like I said, I had Mr. Dason who did it for me. And so it's my obligation to go back and to lift those kids up and to show them what's possible. Because I think all of us, regardless of who we are, when we look at life, we think things are very difficult to do, but it's just a matter of doing them. And with YouTube and everything now, you can do anything you want. It's just searching for it. And they have to understand that they don't need to use all the social media,
Mm-hmm.
just to say how good they look or just to say this or that. They need to use social media in order to learn how to create and construct a life,
Right.
and with YouTube, it's very easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Half of my life was built around YouTube,
Mm.
because when you want to learn, there are so many people out there who just want to share their knowledge.
Oh
And let me
yeah,
tell you,
absolutely.
oh, yeah. And let me
Oh
tell
my
you something.
goodness.
I'm ready to take it.
Yeah, you know what? One of the interesting things I told someone yesterday in a conversation, because they were hesitant to use Facebook or any social media, you really have the control of how you use social media. Just because people are using it to post like their personal thoughts and pictures doesn't mean that you have to follow that same suit. You can actually
Right.
use it to elevate your business, or you
That's right.
can connect with people who are in the same industry as you. You can use social media to however you want, because you actually have the control of who you connect with on
That's right.
social media. So, and like me, YouTube, like I don't have the biggest followers, right? I don't have the biggest followers, but what I have is quality
Yeah.
followers, people who are really interested in what I have to offer and can help me leverage my business, and I can help them leverage them. So, for me, I'd rather have 500 quality followers than 20,000
Yeah.
people who I have no idea who they are. And it's all great. But in the end, how can you leverage 20,000 people who you can't really market to or you can't really reach? So, you really have to look at it as to how strategically you can use social media in whatever it is that you're doing. And you're right. Everybody can go global. People can use YouTube, they can use social media to reach people. Look, we're talking, you're in England, I'm over here
That's
in
right.
Maryland. Check it
That's
out,
right.
okay?
That's right.
Last year I had somebody in Tobago, Trinidad. I had somebody in Indonesia. I'm going to be having somebody who's in Brazil. So it
Amazing.
does, you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't restrict me from being able to connect with someone across the world,
It doesn't
okay?
matter. It doesn't
It
matter
doesn't
anymore.
matter. It doesn't matter anymore. And some of the things that I like about some of the posts that you talk about in social media is really just having people to reflect and just look at things from a different lens. And you kind of just say, okay, I'm gonna cut this off right now and let you think about that for a minute. You know, I think a lot of people are kind of stumped. They don't know what to say, but I think a lot of people are thinking about it, and then I see it manifest in other ways, like new posts or new ideas, and that's really what it's about. It's about sharing information that gets you to use your critical thinking skills,
Hmm.
to get you to start thinking on a big picture as opposed to a funnel where you're only focusing on one thing. And that
Hmm.
seems to what you're doing there in terms of education. So let me go back in time for a second. Okay, so when you were younger, what made you go and seek a degree in education? Was it it's just that still that same fascination that you talked about earlier?
Well, I had quite a few things. The first thing was two incidents happened in my life that really sort of changed my perspective on everything. The first one was my mom used to sit down and talk to me about her life, and she would walk 5 to 5.5 miles every day to go to school. And here I was walking 20 minutes or catching a bus. And she walked 5 or 5.5 miles every day to go to school. And I'm just like, wow. So I, just that started to thinking that, maybe you need to take this thing serious. And then the other incident was when my mom was 40. My mom stopped smoking. And she said that she stopped smoking because she didn't want her kids to smoke. My mom also went back and got her degree, her high school diploma at 42, because she said she did not want her kids to have any excuse to stop. And so that's what actually prompted me to want to have my master's, because I wanted to be a role model for my brothers and sisters. I wanted my brothers and sisters to be able to see that anything that you want to do is possible. It's not easy, but you can do it. And right now my sister Shirley is actually going back to school and doing her BA, and then she's going to do a master's, and I like to think I had something to do with that, because if you can see it, you can be it. If you got somebody that looks like you, if you got somebody in your neighborhood that have
Hmm.
actually done it,
Hmm.
the roadmap has been laid out. You just have to
Right.
follow the road. Tony Robbins says something that's very interesting. He said, if you want to do something, find somebody who's done it and just model them.
That's
So
right.
so
And
you find
ask
some.
questions and ask questions. I'm telling you, and I say
Yeah.
that like 10 times. Ask questions, and I really believe in this statement. The most dumbest question is one that's never asked.
Yeah.
Because if you're not out there tapping people on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I really love what you do. Can you really give me some insight or maybe teach me a little bit of what you're doing?" And then the person who is getting that question don't feel like that they're trying to take something from you, that they're
Hmm.
trying to invade in your space. They are admiring what you're doing and they
Yeah.
want to model what you're doing. So look at it as a compliment,
Yeah.
And the greatest compliment is are those who's trying to emulate you or
Yeah.
trying to be like you. So
Yeah.
be forthcoming and honest with the answer and help people. And I really advocate for that because even in my own education, and I put a little bit of myself in each one of these podcasts. I'm pretty sure everybody's
Hmm.
heard by now. But in my education, the teachers, they were not forthcoming. They would just come there. They would not really be engaged in any of the lesson plans. And you walk out of there with like, okay, how did I earn this grade if I really didn't learn this thing?
Hmm.
And it just got to the point, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one in my generation, but a lot of us came out of school not knowing how to add, subtract, fractions. It took a long time for me to even get math skills at the 11th grade. You know what I'm saying? I had to really take a hold of my own education and put myself in school. I actually transferred myself in a school that would give me a little bit more education. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and by the time I finished looking at everything, I was at a huge disadvantage in terms of going to college and things like that. And so, like yourself, I just went on a research rampage, right? I went on a research rampage and said there has got to be more out there for me than
Yeah.
just this situation.
Yeah.
And that is the take control that as African American people and other minorities need to do is take control of that part of your education that you are lacking and go out there and find the answer and
Hey,
talk
look,
to people like you said and get the answer so that you can move forward.
look here. You're responsible for you.
Oh
There's
yeah.
nobody else responsible for you but you. When we talk about questions, this book came from a question. my mom, why don't you write a book? It came from a question. And so what I'm doing now, I went to see a movie the other night, the Black Panther, and I came away from that movie with 1,000 ideas. And one of the ideas I came away with from my book is I'm now digitizing every chapter of my book. So I'm creating a comic book, which will have the chapters of the book. But I've also created an animated series for the book. So when we put the comic books up, what will happen if you buy the comic book, you get the animated version free. We have done the voiceover for. And we're getting this, and this now, we've actually, as I said before, got this book inside of a school. So kids will be able to listen to somebody explain to them what they're doing. And so, all that came about because of a question that was asked to me, and like you say, you got to take responsibility for yourself. Nobody, I used to think the world owed me something, and I was so mistaken. So mistaken. The world doesn't owe me a thing. It is what I can do and what I can contribute to the world. And that's, I think, the mindset that a lot of our kids need to have. What can I do for somebody else? Even if it's just opening a door for somebody. Gratitude, being grateful for what you got. And like, if you don't think you have much, you do. You're breathing. You're breathing.
Oh
So let's
yeah. Oh
gratitude.
yeah.
Gratitude.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to ask a different question to sway the conversation. Let's talk about things that people may want to come out and see you. So, are you having any events? Are you speaking somewhere where people can actually meet you in person and can ask you those questions about you and your book?
Unfortunately, at the moment, no. So, but because I'm being here, I don't. I speak to a lot of schools here. I speak to a lot of student bodies and a lot of adults here in the UK. But one of the things I'm going to start doing this summer is my book was just submitted to the library where I was born, which is just phenomenal. So I'm going to have a book signing session in the library this summer, in August when I go home. But I'm trying to get as many podcasts and as many people, as many radio stations and TV stations to try to pick up on the book because, we have a serious problem in our schools and in society. And that problem is called mental health. And I think this book that I've written goes a long way to trying to encourage people. And I know encouragement is not everything, but you have to take the first step. You have to believe that you're important. You have to believe that you have something to contribute to the world. And you have to believe that you're of value. And so I just think, if and when I'm doing these sessions, that is my message to people. You are of value. And I think a lot of people don't think that they are of value. They go day to day and they do the same thing day in and day out. And they don't think what they're doing is of value to anybody else. But, you are. And you must understand that. And that's extremely important. Extremely important.
Fabulous. So, if you were to give three main pieces of advice to sum up basketball, education, being an author, and anything else as far as technology, what would you give as far as people who are listening to this podcast, whether they're young or old, and thinking about being in any of those three or four areas that you have already accomplished in your
Okay.
life?
I think the number one thing is you need to learn about technology. I think that if you don't know about technology, you're cutting yourself off to a large part of the world. I think technology, if used the right way, can be engaging. You can also help other people. And I think it's very important that with technology, well, look at what we're doing now. Look at what I did with the kids at home, so you're able to actually talk to people and help people and enhance people's lives. One of the things we're doing also here is I'm working with an organization to actually help young and old elderly people learn how to use devices. So we go into the home and I think it's every Thursday we go in and, for an hour and we teach them how to use email. We teach them how to use iPads, so stuff like that. So learn how to use technology. The other thing I would say is that be grateful for what you got. Gratitude goes a long way towards being able to do the things that you want to do. I have a vision board, and within that vision board, I am grateful for everything that I put on there. And although I don't have those things yet, they will come, strictly through gratitude and, of course, hard work. The other thing I would say in terms of, all the young kids who want to play basketball, I'm saying go for your dreams. Go for your dreams and be careful who you tell your dreams to, because people who can't see it for you or who couldn't see it for themselves will try to put you down sometimes. So I very seldom tell people my dreams. I write my dreams down and I read them myself. I am good enough to understand where I need to go and how I need to get there. I don't need anybody to, encourage me to do that. I am extremely self-motivated. So as an individual, you need to be extremely motivated and understand one thing. Understand that you were brought here for a reason, and part of that reason you were brought here is to make somebody else's life better. So use all those things that you do to help the world prosper, and you will prosper. It's impossible not to. And just be grateful for what you got.
Right. Wow. That is fabulous. So I want to thank you for being on the podcast, and everybody who's listening. Yeah, as you can hear, and you'll probably hear this time and time again, that it all starts with you. It all starts with you going out there and seeking the information that's going to help you move forward. So if it's something that you want to do, no matter what industry or that you want to be in, if you want to be an author, basketball, education, whatever it is, you have the control and the navigation to make it happen. And so you're going to be hearing that from a lot of people here, because these are people who have done it. And don't be afraid to go out there and seek a mentor or coach or anything like that. And also, again, on this page, you're going to have his contact information. So you'll be able to reach out to Renaldo directly. And he is very, very active on Facebook. So Renaldo, give them your contact information so that, people can contact you if they want you to speak for their events. And this could be global. Like you said, it could be a YouTube, it could be a Facebook. Give them your contact information.
My Twitter is at Lawrence Renaldo. My email address is just NALDO123 yahoo.com. My LinkedIn, if you just go to LinkedIn and search for Renaldo Lawrence, you'll find me. My Facebook is, again, just go search for Renaldo Lawrence and you'll find me on Facebook. Can I just say one other thing? The best place that you could ever be in your life is the library. All my young people, do you hear me? The best place that you could ever be is the library. It is the start of wisdom. It's the place that you can travel around the world and not move a step. Not move a step. So go to the library, get yourself a library card, start traveling. Travel before you start traveling. Travel in your mind first.
Fabulous. So thank you so much for being on this program. I am so happy that we have met, and we're definitely going to stay connected and do some other great stuff for the students, because just like, you do the same thing I do, you help the students, especially the young people, to find their purpose and give them information. So I am really and happily blessed that we have met for this podcast platform. So thank you so much for supporting the movement.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.